We've made it through February! At last, at least as I'm recording this, we've almost made it through February. And by the time you're watching it, we've most likely made it through February. And now, here comes March. And there is a particular kind of energy when the stars are asking us to slow down and view things from a totally different perspective to what we're used to or comfortable with. And March is exactly that month. Mars and Venus are moving into two unusual and slightly uncomfortable positions. Mercury retrograde is creating a lot of confusion throughout the whole process, and a lunar eclipse at the beginning of the month has the potential to totally shake up what our everyday life looks like. This is a month where pushing and forcing isn't gonna get us anywhere. This is a month where you need to step into it with intention, with a strategy, and with wisdom. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. So let's start with how we're going to be relating to each other and how we're going to be experiencing community, relationships, and other people, because the two planets that are responsible for that, Mars and Venus, are both going into very unfamiliar and slightly uncomfortable territory in the month of March. Mars enters Pisces on the 2nd of March and Venus enters Aries on the 6th of March. Mars is the planet that governs our physical energy and our initiating drive. The thing is, when Mars is in Pisces, it's imagine a sprinter who's trying to get off the mark, but on sand and with the water reaching knee high. That's what Mars is like in Pisces. It's very difficult to get going. You're kind of fighting against something that you can't push against, that gives and yields, and you can't really get yourself off the ground. Likewise, Mars can often be responsible for conflict. It's where our ego goes, where our determination to push our will and to put our perspective through comes from. But in Pisces, we are so switched on to everybody's feelings that we tend to avoid conflict on purpose, because there is a danger that we'll feel both our negative emotions and the other person's negative emotions. So it's easier to just swim around each other, to carry on with the Pisces theme, rather than force our way through anything. And then on the other hand, we have Venus. Venus, the planet that wants to relate to other people, that governs how we receive rather than give and initiate, and also how we create harmony in the least harmonious sign of the zodiac, in Aries. And in this position, we have to relate to others by prioritizing ourselves, which is not a bad thing, but when everybody is doing that, that can come with its own set of challenges. With Venus in Aries, we receive by being the initiating force. So if you want to get something, you have to go out and get it, essentially. So with both of those planets being in fairly unfamiliar territory, the social situations around us change, and things that were previously unsaid might all of a sudden be out in the open, and vice versa. Things we were talking about will suddenly remain hidden. And while we are navigating all of that, Mercury will still be in retrograde for most of March. It goes direct on the 20th of March. But it won't come out of shadow until early April. So this whole story arc that has been developing since Mercury entered its pre-retrograde shadow in mid-February won't come to a close until early April. And with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, that means that our logical mind is not going to be able to help us navigate those unusual and new social situations. We're going to have to go by feeling a lot more than by thinking. And all of this together just creates really murky and confusing terrain. But there is hope, because on the 30th of March, so right at the end of March, Venus moves into Taurus. Venus rules Taurus in traditional astrology, and it's a very sensual, luxurious, indulgent kind of placement. This is where at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we start feeling like spring. The sun comes out, we can hear the birds, we can smell the flowers. We tend to spend more time socially with other people. There's opportunities to go outdoors, get out of hibernation, indulge in some good food, appreciate beautiful surroundings. All of that is coming at the end of March. In other relationship news, do expect a marked change in how we experience committed relationships at the end of the month. So throughout March, Juno, the asteroid of committed relationships, is going to be in Capricorn, which is quite good news actually, because while everything is quite confusing and murky and strange, Juno in Capricorn has the potential to ground us, to make things within close relationships at least a little bit more reliable, a little bit more predictable, and give that little sense of balance. That's going to change on the 29th of March, so just one day before Venus moves, because that's when Juno moves into Aquarius. So where you might have been sticking together in a relationship to navigate these very strange times that we're in at the moment, at the end of March, that's no longer going to bring the same comfort that it does at the moment. That's when the key to a happy relationship is no longer sticking together so much, but instead giving each other the space to be fully authentic, to be fully yourself. And if you can do that together, great, but there are also going to be times going forward from the 29th where, you know, to really make your relationship stronger, you will have to give each other space to also pursue your own thing. If you can join in, great, but you will need that space to be authentic. Now, two of the other goddess asteroids are also moving into a new sign in March, and they are moving into much easier, much more comfortable positions. So first of all, we have Vesta, which moves into Pisces, and that happens on the 10th of March. Vesta is the asteroid that represents devotion, and in Pisces, it's spiritual devotion, which is something that is very ingrained if you're religious, for example. This is a great time to dive deep into your religious practices. If you're not following a set religion, then you'll be more responsible for your own spiritual practices. But there is a lot of benefit, especially around this time, to be gained from showing up in devotion to a higher power. Now, that can be through something like meditating, spending time in nature, through ceremony, for example, cacao ceremonies, and through ritual. These can be personal rituals to you. These can be rituals that are inspired by other practices, by other spiritual practices. But the important thing is that it is something where you slow down, where you're present, and where you do show that kind of reverence for something that is higher and more powerful than we are as humans. And there's a lot of benefit to be gained from that. It's something that I'm exploring myself at the moment. I'm not religious, but I was raised Catholic. So I kind of moved away from ritual and ceremony for a very long time because there was some negative memories associated with that. But I'm just starting to find just how much benefit there is in seeing the divine in everything, essentially, and seeing everything as revered and sacred, as cheesy as that sounds. But doing that is what actually allows you to also see the divine and the sacred within yourself, which is immensely powerful. And then Ceres also moves into Taurus on the 15th of March. Now, this is the most indulgent Ceres placement there is. Ceres governs nurturing, also the harvest. In Earth sign Taurus, which also rules the harvest, and there's a lot of connection between Ceres and the zodiac sign of Taurus. I'm not totally opposed against the idea that Ceres might actually be a much better ruler of Taurus than Venus is. So this is pleasure out in nature. This is eating delicious fresh foods, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, fresh seafood, whatever you can get where you are local. This is bringing the flowers into the home. This is appreciating how everything is in bloom, how it smells outside. This is where you nurture yourself through your senses, through wearing beautiful clothes, through spending time in beautiful environments. Just providing pleasure to all of your senses is how you nurture yourself and how you regain energy. And we also need to talk about Jupiter. Jupiter moves out of retrograde in the sign of Cancer on March the 11th. Jupiter retrograde happens once a year, and it's usually a time where we rethink our beliefs. Most of the time, that's a time we go inward. Maybe we spend a little bit more time with our family during the festive season. We're a little bit more introverted. We hibernate a little bit more, and that gives us time to rethink our beliefs and maybe reorder some things in our heads. But this time around, in the last couple of months, it was a lot less a quiet internal process. A lot of people's beliefs about the world have been fundamentally shattered with everything that's been going on. And it's all culminating in this confusion and this strange fog that we're all feeling at the moment. And when Jupiter moves direct again, we're going to at least start building new beliefs, because that's all that's left. When your beliefs about how the world is, what the world is like, what the limits are of our experience are being fundamentally thrown out the way that they have been over the last couple of months, there has to be a time where we start again and we create our own beliefs. And that's going to be the time when Jupiter moves direct. It's not going to be immediate because Mercury is still in retrograde. We have this strange Mars-Venus thing happening. So there will still be quite a lot of fog to kind of fight your way through until at least the end of March. And there are a few dates in March that are shaping up to be the most volatile times of the month. The first one is a lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 3rd of March, so pretty much straight at the beginning. Because the sun's going to be conjuncting Pallas and the lunar eclipse is happening in Virgo, there is a large focus on how this might shake up our daily routines, what we do day after day, our habits, our work, our everyday life, especially if you have any placements along the Pisces Virgo axis or the Gemini Sagittarius axis. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the lunar eclipse. This is where I go into detail on my newsletter, which, by the way, you can sign up for free. If you sign up now, you will still get the lunar eclipse issue, which is full of journaling prompts, rituals, and lots of fun other things that you can do to fully tap into the lunations. Same with the new moon in Pisces. You can also get lots and lots of extra information on that if you sign up for my newsletter below. And then things do start moving again quite rapidly, potentially, when the sun enters Aries on the 20th of March. This heralds the official astrological new year. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And of course, as soon as the sun enters Aries, it's going to meet Neptune and it's going to meet Saturn straight away, who are still there. And this gives us a lot of power and energy, a lot of physical energy, first of all, which is great. And also a lot of mental energy to start something new, to kind of come out of the fog and begin something, to start down a new path, whether that is new in general for anyone or just new for us personally in our lives. On March the 28th, Saturn also sextiles Pluto. Now, this is an outer planet transit, so we will feel that quite a few days before, quite a few days after. I reckon we're going to feel it pretty much as soon as the sun enters Aries, to be completely honest. And the great thing about Saturn sextiling Pluto is that this constellation activates determination and perseverance. And that is something that Aries energy usually lacks. Aries is very good at initiating, not so good at seeing things through to the end. But with those two outer planets forming the constellation that they do give us that boost to keep going, to keep at our new path, whatever this new path may be. And so it's a little bit like waking up out of the shell shock confusion that we've been in and deciding, okay, this is it. I'm done. I'm creating something new. I'm forging my own path and I don't really care what anyone else says. So March starts very foggy and then ends fired up. And honestly, I think that that's what a lot of us need right now. A month to feel, to release, to not put too much pressure on ourselves, and to let some things just naturally fall apart, so that then when the sun enters Aries, we can get fired up and we have the determination and the energy to build something completely new. So make sure you like this video if it helped you, subscribe if you're new here, welcome by the way, and drop us a comment on how March is landing for you. I would love to hear how we're all experiencing this together. Until next time, ciao ciao!